Well, hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this week's segment of Plum Talk Radio. Today, we are talking about something I hear many of you chatting about, and that is finances. Specifically, many of us, myself included, are a bit confused as to how we are supposed to spend our paychecks. How much money do we, for example, allot for expenses like rent and groceries, that type of thing? And now, a question I have that's front and center in my mind, with our paycheck money strictly tied up with day-to-day living expenses, how can we possibly plan for the future? I mean, things like retirement and our college funds for our kids. It's interesting. I came across an article in the investment section in Forbes Online. I'll share it with you. The article made many valid points, but they were speaking about such things as net income and fixed versus variable expenses. They even made a very valid point that we have to, as consumers, clearly identify our financial goals, be aware of our planning income versus our impulse spending. All very important information, but my question is this: how do we put the valid concepts that we see in the media and in articles like that to work for us? How do we spend our hard-earned dollars so that we are comfortable now, but still really planning for our future? To help us sort out these important matters, we have asked founding partner of Centurion Wealth Management, Wendy Payne, to join us. After a word from our sponsor, we will be back together to discuss some of these very sensitive but important issues. We will be discussing a day in the life of a paycheck. How do we, as Wendy might say, plan wisely so that we can live fully? We will be back in a moment. The LA Podiatry Group considers their team members family. That family includes their physicians and staff, but would not be complete without you, their patients. Their board-certified physicians and caring staff are committed to the highest level of podiatric medical care, community education, and patient convenience. To find out more or to make an appointment, go to lapodiatrygroup.com or call 561-433-5577. That's 561-433-5577. It is a great day to plan for our financial future. I have with me founding partner of Centurion Wealth Management. I have Wendy Payne with me. Now, Wendy is a founding partner, like I said, of Centurion Wealth Management, who is an affiliate of Spire Securities, a member of FINRA and SIPC. They plan wisely so that we can live fully. Thank you for joining us, Wendy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm honored to join your podcast here.
Well, great. You know what? And I know that you know a lot about Plum Talk, and one of our lifestyle principles is financial freedom, financial management, because we all struggle with that at some points in our life. And I will tell you that some of our community have asked us about paychecks. Many of us get a paycheck. Sometimes it's very difficult to know how to manage it. In your business, what mistakes do you see your clients making with regards to how they spend the monies that come in as a salary?
Well, number one would be excessive or frivolous spending. And how that's defined really varies from person to person, because what's important for you to spend money on may not be as important for me. So we look at, where can we spend more efficiently? And we all sort of know where those areas are in our own lives. We can sort of diagnose that. Sometimes it's hard to be honest with ourselves about our spending habits and all of that. But, essentially, we spend a lot on food, eating out, stopping at Starbucks multiple times a week. I know I'm sometimes guilty of that myself.
I am as well.
Entertainment, concerts, golfing, that kind of thing. Another thing where we struggle with would, maybe be like the never-ending payments. A lot of us belong to different clubs, memberships, Costco, gym memberships, things like that. And these are monthly obligations that you have, financially. Are you maximizing that, the benefits of those memberships? Do you really need that Costco membership that you pay for annually? Another big mistake is living on borrowed money, essentially really relying on credit cards to meet your living expenditures on a month-by-month basis. And with so many people very much struggle with that because they're finding that their debt is growing month over month. and that is largely due to overspending. There
Right.
are some ifs, ands, or buts to that, but living on borrowed money is a mistake that we encounter as well. When we're purchasing large items like a new car, possibly we are overspending there. There's a very big difference between being able to afford a car and being able to afford the payment of the car. There's a big difference there, and really thinking about, do I really need that SUV? If I'm not hauling a trailer or a boat or towing something, or if I don't have a very large family, do I really need this large 8-cylinder engine that's not very fuel efficient? Maybe there's something that's more affordable. The same thing resonates with buying a new home. Do you really need, a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot home if you don't have a very large family? And some people, when we talk about homes, when we talk about home equity, lines of credit on our home, a lot of people, unfortunately, have used their, equity in their home sort of like a piggy bank. Once upon a time, you would use that. You would take a line of credit out or get a second mortgage on your home to build an addition, maybe renovate or remodel some things. That the intention would be that the monies that you are borrowing on that equity would go back into your home to, in theory, increase the value of the home. So unfortunately, people all too often use that as like a piggy bank for vacations and shopping sprees and a new car and things to that effect, which, that is also a financial mistake that's made.
And all of these things that you're listing, I mean, I guess short term may make us feel better and we feel like, wow, I have that money there, but it comes back and haunts us.
Absolutely. And when you are living paycheck to paycheck, if you're not saving for your retirement, you're not saving in your non-retirement account sort of as an emergency or as a cash cushion, as I call it, when you're not doing that and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're putting yourself at a much higher risk of racking up that credit card debt or any other kind of debt, rather. And when there is something that happens that's financially, challenging, or something that's outside of the status quo, maybe you have a flat tire on the car, or maybe the hot water heater bursts and things are ruined. Maybe there's an illness. These things happen. That tends to be, a financial disaster, especially for those living paycheck to paycheck. So how do we spend the paycheck, and the mistakes that are made actually happen sort of before you're allocating your paycheck there?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll speak from my personal standpoint, and I know a lot of my friends and even colleagues that I deal with this as well, is say you're going into you go shopping, right, and you look at that wonderful piece of clothing that you just think that you absolutely have to, and I have been guilty of talking myself into it. So just kind of as a side note, how would you recommend, how do we delineate those necessary things and those frivolous things that maybe we need to put on the wayside? How would you recommend we do that?
Well, I learned something, back in high school and also again in college. We talked about, in our finance classes, we talked about opportunity costs. And I don't hear people talking about that in day-to-day life. An opportunity cost is essentially defined by, if I'm going to take this money and go buy this great outfit, what is the next best thing that I could be doing? Is there something better I could be doing with those funds? And so it's at that point of purchase, or just prior to that point of purchase, where you're talking yourself into or out of a purchase, really considering and weighing that opportunity cost. Is there something that's going to be better off for me in the long run? That I think gives us a different perspective, and we're kind of checking in with our financial selves, if you will. The other thing would be really tracking where your money goes. Great fortunes are lost $1 at a time, and I wholeheartedly believe that. And with so much of what we do financially is automated. Our paychecks are direct deposited. Our utility bills are paid, automatically. Our mortgages are, directly debited from our accounts. That we're not necessarily tracking where our monies are going, because everything is, again, so automated. So really taking more time to track where the monies are going, and adding it up, not just short term, but long term. Look at what you're spending on clothing over the course of the year as compare that to your electric bill or your grocery
Right.
bill. You might be surprised to see what you're spending, and that may be motivation enough to say, maybe I don't need that outfit.
Right, right. No, that's very, very true. So, when we get that, you're outlining some of the mistakes that we do with our paycheck, and I can, in your opinion, when I look at things, I look at the short-term effect and then the long-term. So, short-term, mismanaging our paycheck or our salaries that are coming in, what are the short-term consequences of mismanaging, would you say?
Well, the short term is that, essentially if I essentially, my paycheck is an asset, right? We have
Right.
that net, pay to us after taxes and retirement plans, contributions and all of that. That's an asset. And so essentially the short-term risk is depleting that asset before it can be replenished again. And if you do that, you're really almost forced into a situation where you're borrowing money. Whether you're borrowing it from a family member or whether you're borrowing it from a credit card, using your charge card more frequently than you should to cover the basics.
Right.
And that, short term, it's a short-term fix to get what you want or to cover that utility bill or whatever it may be. But long term, it really adds up.
Oh, it does. It does. So, and then I would only imagine that, day after day, week after week, year after year even, of mismanaging the money that we have coming in would have long-term consequences. I mean, we're talking credit card debt. I mean, what are the long-term consequences?
Well, the long-term consequence, the biggest long-term consequence, in my opinion, the two largest ones, in my opinion, are, one, you could end up in a situation where you are forced into a delayed retirement situation. A lot of us have an idea of what retirement should be like and at what age that would start. When am I going to start traveling and golfing more and, doing some volunteer work, more on a full-time basis? And that may be around age 62. Well, if I have more debt that I have to tackle and pay off, I have to work longer. And that means that I'm not going to be able to retire at 62, especially if I'm not saving also.
Right.
And the thing is that, this paycheck, at some point our paychecks end. At some point we're not able to work anymore, whether it's because we have to care for another family member or whether it's because we are unable because of health situations, or maybe it's because the opportunity is gone and it's more challenging to have a job when we're at that age and stage of life.
Right.
So the challenge would be working longer. And then the second long-term effect that I personally, this is my own opinion, is that, our children and our grandchildren, they're all sponges. They soak up every bit of information. How we communicate with others, how we relate to others, how we treat one another, all the way down to how we're spending money. And, I was with a friend not too long ago, and she's a very wee little one, and he wanted something at the store, and of course was, I want to buy this, please, and he was of course negotiating and begging, and
Right.
Mom said, we can't afford that this go round, maybe next time, and he's, just get the credit card out. So these are habits and spending, patterns that are then passed on to our children.
Right.
So
No, it is true.
Yeah, that's another longer term, concern that is near and dear to me.
And that is true. I mean, we have to think about that too, because from what I'm hearing from you, and it does make sense, is that our spending habits may have a short-term effect, even a long-term effect on us personally, but we're also teaching our future how to manage funds. Don't you think?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that definitely is motivation. It kind of puts a new spin on how to spend your paycheck. So I have something kind of unique I'd like to do with you. I'd like to, and it's the title of this program, is Spend the Day in the Life of a Paycheck, meaning, say I get my paycheck in tomorrow. How would you recommend that the funds be allocated? Is there, and maybe this is too structured, but is there a formula for how we should be spending the funds that we have?
I have some guidelines, and I was prepared to answer this sort of in two different ways because we
Okay.
have everyone in the audience. They come from a different stage of life, different experience, and we all relate to one another differently. For the person who just wants a very broad overview summary, let me start there, and if we want to delve deeper, we can. In general, you want to maybe consider half, 50% of your net income, after taxes and your 401 retirement account. Make sure you're contributing to your retirement accounts after all of that's been deducted. 50% should go to your needs or your must-haves. So what are those needs or must-haves? It's not the designer purse over at the mall. Your needs and must-haves would be your housing costs, your utilities, transportation, your insurance, food, the expenses that you absolutely cannot skip in order to live. So that would be, about half should be based upon, or going towards your needs and your must-haves for life. And then 30% would then be allocated towards your quote-unquote wants and discretionary spending. This would be vacations, your Netflix subscription, golfing, gifts around the holidays and birthdays, things to that, and that designer handbag I mentioned, that would fall under this 30% discretionary or want spending. And then that leaves 20% that should go to cash and emergency, nest egg, saving for short-term purchases if you're going to purchase a new home. And also by not allocating 100% between wants and needs, you have a buffer there so that if something unusual happens, like that hot water heater is broken, you have cushion then, not just because you've accumulated in savings, but because you have not allocated every single penny of your paycheck to those must-haves and the wants.
Okay, that's great. I mean, that definitely is a guideline. So just to summarize what you're saying take that paycheck, and a third of it goes to your needs and must-haves, your grocery, your rent, that type of thing. And then
50%, half of that.
Oh, half. I'm so sorry. Half.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good we're reviewing this. And then out of the remaining half, 30% of that goes to your discretionary wants and needs, that type of thing. And then the remaining 20% is your cash for your emergency. So you have that little padding just in case you need it.
Correct.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And, one question that sometimes I hear from other people, and I'm just curious about this as well, is I have, read articles like this, and I mentioned something similar to one person, and she was telling me, well, after I get my paycheck and my needs are so high, meaning that half that you spend on your wants and needs, your wants and needs it's already taken up most of my paycheck. How do you recommend they deal with that? Should they get an extra job? Should they, some people, their paycheck is all their needs, the funds are already allocated.
Right, and so this is where the answer there is really it depends.
Okay.
And I know people that I've spoken with and lectured to before, the it depends answer is really pretty common coming from me. It depends on the person, because if you're tracking where your money goes, if we're talking about housing or utilities, are you defining your cell phone plan and your long distance home phone plan as part of that? Because maybe you can do without one or the other, or maybe there's a way to pare back. It's a matter of getting creative and saying, how can I reduce the expenditures that I have? Where can I do that? I may be willing to go without home internet service, whereby you may not. It really depends on the person and where their priorities are. Would they prefer to work a part-time job to have extra income, or would they prefer to cut back on some of their costs? And I would encourage everyone, regardless of age and stage or walk of life, when we talk about 20% savings, when you're putting money away for savings, I want you to think of that as an expenditure. It's an expense that you have to, it's very important, because you have to save for tomorrow, again, because things happen in the short term and also for the longer term.
I like that. Because we do have to plan for the long term, and I know that's a lot of what you do in your company with retirement planning and that in the financial planning. It actually, what's coming to mind right now is, with those funds, and I'm thinking for a lot of us, if we find that a lot of our paycheck is taken up with those needs, I mean, that's really motivating. We can either look at what we're spending and really get creative on how can we cut that so we have that extra, 20% that we can rely on in case of an emergency. And also, maybe we go back to our boss and we, negotiate a raise of some type. I mean, there's definitely options to increase the padding there.
Absolutely. And with regards to what you just spoke about, going back to your boss or supervisor and finding out if there's a way to increase your compensation,
yes,
that there's a way to negotiate that. And I would encourage listeners to negotiate or advocate for themselves in the workplace, not just based upon that financial salary. Maybe there's a higher amount of the medical insurance premium that the employer would be willing to cover in lieu of a financial raise. Maybe there's a higher maybe there's a way to get reimbursed for commuting. Maybe there's a toll road that they travel that the employer is willing to cover or reimburse. Maybe there's a way to commute, telecommute, work from home one day or something to that nature to reduce their commuting costs. Maybe depending on the work environment, if they have to dress in business attire, maybe there's a way to be reimbursed up to a certain dollar amount for business attire that's purchased. There are all kinds of creative ways to advocate for yourself in the workforce to be compensated and rewarded in other ways above and beyond your financial salary.
Oh, that's an excellent point. And it all comes down to is we don't know if we don't ask, right?
Exactly. And, this financial literacy, that runs the whole gamut. I mean, there's a very wide spectrum there. It goes beyond just the cash flow and how to allocate your paycheck and investing and planning for retirement. It really touches every corner of our lives. And the more that we know and are aware, the more perspective that we can have for ourselves as well is just better for us going into the future.
Oh, I agree 100%. So, one thing kind of just off the beaten path as a side note, we were talking about the half and 20%. What about saving for the future? What about retirement like you touched on? I realize that's a topic for an entire separate interview, but is there a percentage that we should put away for investing in any form?
Yeah, the answer there, I'm going to say again, it depends.
Okay.
First and foremost, I kind of have three tiers here.
Okay.
It's important to have a cash buffer, and that cash that would be in your bank account, most ideally in your savings account, where it's not part of your checking account, and that's part of your spending, if you will. You want it separate from that. And usually we like to advise clients and individuals that to have maybe 3 months up to 12 months worth of their living expenditures as cash on hand. And that's 3 months to 12 months is a big range here. And that really, for the most part, boils down to job security. Do you have what does your job security look like? If you know that you have great job security, maybe you should have about 3 months worth of living expenditures. If you have great job security and you have young children who tend to become ill and that kind of thing, maybe you should have a little bit more. If you do not feel great about the tenure of your position where you work, maybe you need to have a little bit more. And if your skills are not maybe as marketable with a new employer, we would say maybe have closer to a year's worth of your living expenditures in cash. So that's sort of the first step. But you also, at the same time, you want to be contributing to your retirement plan. And for the most part, this piece goes towards the people who have their 401k or 403b or employer-sponsored retirement account, or maybe a TSP through the government. The most that we can contribute would be up to $18,000 per year if we've earned that amount. If we are, under the age of 50. If you're over the age of 50, you can contribute up to $24,000 a year. But this is sort of like a balancing act because you want to contribute as much as you can into that retirement account, but you don't want to do that at the expense of having your net paycheck be such that you are forced to rely on those credit cards.
Oh, okay, true, right?
Because most credit cards are charging, well into the double digits interest rate. And conversely, it's not likely to be earning double digits rate of return on your, 401k investments on a continuous basis. So it doesn't make financial sense. You want to make sure that you have a happy medium there. You can always start low with a few dollars a paycheck, maybe $25, $50 per pay period, and work your way up to see where that comfort level is.
Right. And it's all about comfort. It is a comfort level, and I think when it comes to planning for our future, at least financially, I believe that really we all want to be comfortable. So just last words of advice for our viewers, for our listeners that are out there, for those wondering what to do with their paycheck, wondering about their financial future, are there any words of advice that you would leave them with?
A couple of things come to mind. First off, I would love to remove the word budget from the face of the earth, because we all think about the word budget. Oh, I need to budget.
It's a dirty word.
There's a lot of negative because it feels very restricting.
It does.
So if I say to you, hey, look, how do you feel about me putting you on a budget? That doesn't have a very good feel to it. But if I say to you, hey, let's create a spending plan, that's something that maybe you get a little more, I don't want to say enthusiastic, but it piques your interest certainly more. So when you're allocating your paycheck and you're looking at how you're spending your money, I want you to think of it as a spending plan. Where do I want to spend my money? Where do I
know what it does? It puts a positive spin on it.
Absolutely.
Instead of negative budget, you're positive. I like that very much.
So I would say, create your spending plan. Track, a lot of people use online banking. If not, you have your paper statements that come in the mail. You can sort of itemize and sort of categorize, if you will. These expenditures are related to housing. These expenditures are related to transportation. And here's the insurance. And here's, food and groceries. And here's the medical. And then here's, entertainment and restaurants and travel and shopping. And so you should be able to look back and itemize or categorize how you're spending and look at that, not just on the short term, but the long term. So if I look at year to date, well, how much have I paid for my satellite, television dish network service year to date? So what does that mean for an entire year? Wow, that's a lot. Maybe I should have a conversation with them. Maybe we don't need as many channels as we have. Look at ways to cut that back, but look at it short term and long term. And a lot of us, we work 40 hours a week. Some work even more than that. And we work those many hours we dedicate that time to earning that money and to getting that paycheck. But how much time are we spending tracking where it's going and managing and planning and really getting a better handle on things? And we don't spend nearly as much time on the tracking and managing of that. So, I would say, start as soon as you can. There are all kinds of online resources. There are budget, worksheets. I know they're called budget. They should really be called spending plan worksheets, but I can't remove that, unfortunately. But create a spending plan for yourself and revisit it. And it's not me or anyone else saying you spend too much here or you spend too much there, because really if you're honest with yourself, you'll be able to recognize that and know where you need to do that. It's really a self-governing process.
Right. Okay, great words of advice. I mean, definitely, I have learned so much from the interview today. So for the viewers out there that may want to learn more or they need more resources or contact you, where would you point them?
I would say look at our website. There's a whole array. We have a resource library there for, for spending plans, for, a lot of the topics we've covered today, retirement, how much should I be saving, am I saving in the right spot? Our website is www.centurionwealth.com. And my contact information is there. If you are not internet friendly or you don't have access to a computer, we can always be reached here at area code 571-765-1890. Happy to answer any questions. Again, we're very passionate about financially educating our community.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. And for all you listeners that are out there, we're going to take a brief break with a moment from our sponsor, and we will be right back. Thank you very much. If you are new to LA Podiatry, they have one word to say: welcome. Their staff and physicians take pride in treating every patient like they are a priority. They will continue to take strides with their patients towards optimal foot and ankle health. For more information, go to lapodiatrygroup.com, visit them on Facebook, or call 561-433-5577. Wow, so fortunate to have Wendy with us today. A big thank you for all that she does. She is truly, I think you'll agree, right, after today, she is truly passionate about her work, and we salute her for sure. Our conversation actually has reminded me of one last thing that I'd like to share with you. It reminds me of a quote by Cindy Morgan. She says this: I love spending time with my friends and family. The simplest things in life give me the most pleasure. Cooking a good meal, enjoying my friends. You know, for me personally, with our finances in order, properly preparing for the future, that is indeed what we can do. We can truly enjoy what matters most in our lives in the here and the now. For me, that is time with my family and friends for sure. So until next time, this is Dr. Shelley Plum. Don't forget to visit us at plumtalkwomen.com, like us on Facebook, join that party on Twitter with us. From the team at Plum Talk, we wish you all a prosperous week. Onward and upward.